Former President Donald Trump is expected to voluntarily travel to New York early next week, where he will be formally charged on the grand jury indictment. New York police officials are negotiating the logistics of the trip with Donald Trump's Secret Service detail. Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen joins us live now. Good afternoon to you, Annalise. So when do we find out the actual charges?
We'll find out at the same time that Donald Trump finds out when he's arraigned in court in New York. Now, we have a lot of suspicions around what this will entail. The guess is that this is around this hush money payment to Stormy Daniels made in the lead up to the 2016 election. Now, she is a former porn star who said that she had a relationship with Donald Trump. This obviously wouldn't have boded well in the lead up to the 2016 election, but there is nothing illegal about paying someone to not talk about something you'd rather they didn't. The question here is, was there a breach of the law in how the payment was made, where the money came from, how it was recorded, reported, campaign financing? There's a lot of options. We'll find out on the day, and that will give us a better indicator of just how serious these charges will be. There is no real assumption that Donald Trump will be held in custody, although part of the arraignment hearing will be the discussion of bail. He, like any other defendant, though, will be required to have his fingerprints taken, his mugshot taken, and there will be an open hearing in court where all of this will be made public. It will then go to trial, and this will likely, again, not happen for another year. But what that does is put this smack bang in the middle of the 2024 election season, and Donald Trump is a presidential candidate for the next term. So this is all the more extraordinary by the day, and it's also the first time any former president has faced a criminal conviction. So this is one for the history books. There's no playbook here for anyone, especially for the White House. There's been repeated questions asked of Joe Biden, what he makes of all this. The issue for the president, if he does start to weigh in, is it could be seen as influencing the outcome or attempting to influence the outcome of the trial. And so when asked repeatedly, Joe Biden said no comment.
Are you worried this will further divide our country, the indictment?
I have no comment on that.
Mr. President. Possible protest in the wake of the indictment?
No, I'm not going to talk about Trump's indictment.
We don't know a lot of what the grand jury heard, but we do know in this process it's only the prosecution evidence that's put to them. The person who is the potential accused can give evidence and is normally called upon to give evidence. Donald Trump said he didn't front the grand jury, and that seemed to factor into his calculation that he was going to be charged last week. Obviously, that didn't eventuate, but this is the nature of grand juries. All they decide is whether there's enough evidence to go forward with a charge. So they have to decide, with everything presented to them at its highest level, could it result in a conviction? It's not a normal jury size. It's between 16 to 23 people. It's been reported that this was 23 people, and just half of them have to say that there is enough evidence. And so that's not the same threshold as the trial will require, nor did they consider the defence. It is likely that Donald Trump will mount a very strong defence. But the other thing to consider here is the reporting from sources is the main witness is Michael Cohen. Now, he's a former ally of Donald Trump, his former lawyer, who's turned to be one of his biggest critics. He's also had his own legal issues in the past. And so there's serious questions about what kind of credibility he could have as a witness. He's been doing the media rounds since the reporting of the indictment came out, and that's certainly not going to be much comfort to the district attorney.
He is not thick-skinned. He's actually very thin-skinned, and he has a very fragile ego. This is his biggest fear, that he will be mugshotted, and that, he's going to now have an F, a felony, next to his name. These are not things that Donald Trump ever thought in his entire life, nor I, for that matter, that he would ever be confronted with.
Negotiations are underway now between New York City Police as well as the Secret Service. Any former president in the United States has a Secret Service detail, as we've seen with Barack Obama as he travels around Australia. That's been the exact same thing for Donald Trump. The concern is, how do they get him safely to New York? Now, he said he will go voluntarily. There's no question of him having to be handcuffed or forcibly taken to New York. But any presidential visit normally has roads closed, has screening for anyone who's in the room, much higher than you'd see for a normal courtroom. There's suggestions that they could have to close the entire court complex for this process to take place. And there are serious safety concerns with any president. We do know that there have been assassinations of US presidents in the past, and they have to take these seriously. And this is completely unprecedented, the process of having to take a former president into a legal proceeding in a state level court. And so we'll be watching closely exactly how they decide to manage all of that. And it's reported that will happen next Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. local time in New York.
All right, thank you very much, Annalise. We'll touch base with you again throughout the morning.